The first man to call Thomas Reeves home, a Burrow, did it with a smile sharp enough to cut leather.
You aim to spend winter in that badger hole, Reeves. Let them laugh. The cold does not care about a man's pride.
But behind the mockery, smoke curled from his sunken doorway, and the earth held a secret no neighbor could see.
The man's a fool. He'll freeze in that dirt pit. No roof worth the name. Don't listen to them, Scout. They'll find out soon enough.
By nightfall, the little lodge glowed against the deep snow like a lantern half buried in the earth.
They'll never guess why it stays warm. And maybe they never need to. My cabin's got solid logs and a roof that'll hold any snow this valley throws at it.
A week later, the sky turned to iron, and the first real freeze of winter came down from the mountains. But weeks before the first snow, this had been nothing more than a round hole in the earth.
4 feet down, Scout. That's where the cold forgets to follow.
He had no book learning, only the wisdom of old farmers who said the ground 4 feet down never froze.
Timber and sod above, earth below. A cave, but one a man could call home.
The rafters went up like the ribs of a whale. Neighbors paused to watch, their silence full of questions they wouldn't ask.
There. That's another blanket on top. You'll stay warm even if I don't, old friend.
Some called it a prairie ship, upside down. Others just called it foolish.
They'll understand when the wind howls. They'll knock on this door and find it open.
He planted a final square of sod, then stood back. The lodge looked like a low hill with a door, and when the first hard freeze arrived, the burrow stood alone in the snow, its smoke rising steady as a promise. Inside the burrow, Thomas sat by the small fire with Scout at his feet, the air so surprisingly mild he wore only a light wool shirt.
4 feet down. The ground itself is my hearth.
But in the Caldwell cabin, ice bloomed on every nailhead, and the children shivered in their coats.
Heard Reeves is burning twice the wood any sensible man would. That dirt roof won't hold a real snow load. I give it till Christmas before he's knocking on my door, begging for a proper roof.
The snow fell heavier that night, and Thomas walked his low ceiling in the dark, pressing a warm hand to the earthen wall and listening to the profound silence.
Hear that, Scout? Nothing. No draft, no creaking.
Across the valley, Robert's roof began to groan and pop under the accumulating weight of the snow.
That sounds nothing. Just the timber settling.
But deep in the earth, the lodge held its breath, warm as a promise. The valley wasn't yet ready to believe. A week later, word spread through the valley like a cold wind. The worst freeze in a decade was coming. While others scrambled to double their woodpiles, Thomas knelt in his quiet lodge and pressed his palm flat to the dirt floor.
Still warm. The earth down here hasn't forgotten the summer.
Out in the swirling snow, Robert's axe bit into frozen wood again and again, while his wife dragged a sled of split logs toward the cabin. But Thomas fed his fire only what it needed, and the lodge held its own against the deepening chill.
They'll burn through their stacks in weeks. I'll still have wood when the thaw comes.
Then the cold snap hit, not gradually, but like a door slamming shut on the valley. Temperatures plunged below anything the old-timers could recall, and the wind began to search for cracks.
The frost line. That's the secret they can't see.
And as the world above turned to iron, the burrow sat waiting, its deep floor radiating a quiet, stubborn warmth that no wind could steal. For 3 days the cold deepened. Yet the smoke from Thomas's chimney was never more than a thin gray thread.
That man's burning half the wood I am and claims his dirt hole is warm. He's hiding something in this cold. Those logs won't last a week. They'll be freezing in their cabins while the ground keeps me warm.
The cold bore down until even the bravest horses refused the sled.
Reeves, how much wood have you got stashed away? No man keeps a fire that small in this cold.
But Robert's own cabin told a different story. Beams bowed, children shivered in their coats.
I am not hoarding, Caldwell. The earth itself does half the work. You'd see that if you looked past your own walls.
A gust of wind rattled the frozen brush, but Thomas's voice stayed even.
Earth. It's a mound of dirt. You are just lucky. Wait till the real snow comes and buries your burrow.
Robert fed his fire every day until the woodpile shrank, but the cold still crept through every chink inside the lodge. Thomas knelt and pressed his palm to the dirt. It was not just not cold, it was faintly warm.
The frost line, Scout. That's the line where the cold stops and the deep earth gives back its stored heat.
He fetched a hand trowel and began to dig a small test hole in the floor. He paused, wiping his brow, and touched the soil at the bottom of the small pit. It was warmer than the air.
4 feet down, the earth holds the memory of summer. The cold can't reach it.
He dug a bit more, the dirt clinging to his fingers, and a gentle, steady heat rose from the hole.
This is the secret they'll never guess unless they dig for it.
He filled the hole back carefully and patted the dirt smooth.
We'll keep this between us, old friend. Let them think it's magic.
Outside, the wind screamed. But inside the burrow, the knowledge sat warm in Thomas's chest. By the end of the second week, the Thompsons' cabin had become a frozen shell, and they fled with nothing but blankets and the clothes on their backs. Thomas watched them trudge past through the whiteout, their eyes hollow with a fear he understood only too well.
The Thompsons are gone, Thomas. Robert still won't listen. The beams in our place are cracking louder every hour. My door is open, Margaret. You know that. All of you are welcome, day or night.
Inside the Caldwell cabin, the main crossbeam groaned, a deep, low sound that stilled the children's play.
That's nothing. Keep feeding the fire. We're not running like cowards.
His pride will be the death of us all. I feel it in my bones.
Margaret slipped out into the storm, finding Thomas near his lodge, her shawl white with snow.
He'd rather freeze than step foot in your burrow. I can't change his mind.
As if in answer, a long, splintering sound rolled through the valley, and the wind seemed to pause. The sound decided it. Thomas pulled on his coat and strode toward the Caldwell cabin.
Robert, your roof beam is splitting. You need to get your family out now.
My roof is fine. Your burrow won't tempt me, Reeves. Now get off my land. I am not asking you to like it. I am asking you to keep your family alive. Alive? They're fine. You are the one who'll be dead when that dirt pile caves in. Now go.
He won't listen. He'll let the roof fall on us before he admits he's wrong.
I'll prepare the extra blankets and furs. They'll be here before dawn, whether he likes it or not.
Back in his lodge, Thomas spread every spare blanket, stoked the fire, and made room for souls he hoped would come.
They'll be stubborn fools, but at least they'll be warm fools. Isn't that right, boy?
Outside, the wind picked up again, and the Caldwell roof groaned like a wounded animal. Margaret stole away through the whiteout, leaving the children beside a dying hearth, and found Thomas waiting at his half-buried door.
Please, Thomas, take the children. They won't last another night in that freezing cabin. The children can come, but I won't leave you and Robert to freeze. You all come. Now, before it's too late. He's right, but Robert will never agree. His pride is colder than any wind. Then, I'll keep the door unbarred. When that roof fails, and it will, you drag him here. By force if you must.
She nodded, lips pressed tight, then turned back into the tempest, her shawl stiff with ice, the weight of her choice heavy on her shoulders. Back in the cabin, Robert sat rigid in his chair, feeding split logs into the fire as if anger alone could hold the groaning roof. Then, a sound like a musket shot cracked through the walls, and the children screamed as a cloud of dust and snow sifted from the rafters.
Robert, the beam. Get the children.
Outside, Thomas heard it too, the deep, splintering groan of timber about to surrender. He threw open his heavy door and stood silhouetted against the warm light, waiting. Then, with a splintering roar that silenced the wind, the main beam snapped. Half the roof collapsed inward, swallowing the fire in an avalanche of snow and debris.
Robert, the children, get them out.
This way. Follow the light, to the burrow.
They stumbled into the whiteout, Robert clutching the youngest, Margaret pulling the others, the wind biting at their faces.
Please let us reach that light. Please let him take us in.
Ahead, a warm amber glow rose from the snow. The open door of the burrow, with Thomas silhouetted against the flame.
Hurry, I've got room. Keep moving. He was right. All this time, he was right, and I nearly killed my family.
The children cried, but Robert drove them on, his boots sinking deep, his heart pounding with a terror colder than the storm. The burrow's glow grew larger with every staggering step, a beacon in the endless white. They burst through the glowing doorway, snowblind and shaking, into the burrow Thomas had prepared. Blankets spread, fire banked, the air already warm.
Get them by the fire. Hurry, and mind the steps. Get those wet things off.
The children tumbled onto the furs, the color rushing back to their cheeks as the earth's embrace began its work, a deep warmth rising from the floor.
Thank you, Thomas. Oh, thank you. I could barely feel my hands, I thought. I thought we'd freeze out there.
Robert came last, his coat stiff with frost, his face a mask of shame and shock.
I can't believe we're here. In the very den I mocked, and now it's our refuge.
He stood near the earthen wall, arms crossed, as if the dirt itself were a rebuke he couldn't escape.
Get those wet coats off. There's dry blankets here for all of you. Scout, give them room.
Robert, help me with the little ones. We're safe now. Please.
But Robert couldn't meet anyone's eyes. Not yet. He just stared at the floor, where the ground had already forgotten the bitter cold outside. Thomas knelt and smoothed a patch of dirt with his palm.
This floor is 4 feet below the grass. The ground down here never freezes. It gives back the summer's heat.
He pressed his palm flat. The soil was dry and warm like a banked hearthstone.
It's warm. How can the earth do that?
Robert watched from the shadows, jaw tight, the truth stealing over him like a slow thaw.
The cold only sinks so deep. This room sits beneath that line. The earth above me stops the wind. The earth below me stops the frost. So you've been burning half the wood, because the ground itself is your fire. The fire just takes the chill off night and morning. The earth does the rest.
Robert knelt, laid his hand on the dirt. He didn't speak, but his eyes widened, and in that moment, the burrow stopped being a joke. It became the only truth that mattered. 3 days they'd been sealed inside by the white fury, while the burrow hummed with a quiet, unearned grace.
His father was a proud man. He thought earth homes were for backward folk. Does Robert know that his grandfather once lived in a lodge like this?
Robert's head came up from the far corner. He had heard every word.
Don't talk about things you don't understand. That's family business. We're not digging up old wounds. We're just trying to understand the man you are.
I only meant that your grandfather once had a home dug into the earth. It saved his family too.
Robert's jaw tightened, a dozen old lessons warring in his throat, then finally spilling out.
That's a lie. Father said he built a proper house back east, didn't he?
The question hung in the warm air, and Robert turned away, but not before Thomas saw the crack in his armor. By the 4th day, the wind had exhausted itself. Thomas pulled on his snow-crusted boots and ventured out into a muffled, white world. He returned an hour later, stamping snow from his boots, a glint of something like vindication in his eyes.
The Thompsons are already asking questions. They want to know how I built this place. The truth is spreading. Maybe it's time I stopped fighting it.
Later that afternoon, Thomas found Robert alone in the far corner, running a calloused hand over the ribbed timber of the ceiling.
How do these hold the weight? The snow must be 10 feet deep up there. The rafters lean inward, like a bridge arch. The sod compacts and gets stronger, not weaker. I mocked this, but the design is clever. My father was wrong.
He didn't say it aloud, but his hands told the story. They explored the seams and joints the way a builder's hands do.
If the valley wants to learn, I'll teach them. Every man deserves a home that won't freeze come winter.
That night, after Thomas had fallen asleep, Robert sat apart with Margaret beside the banked fire.
I was wrong about the Burrow, Margaret. Wrong about Thomas. It shames me to say it.
You were wrong, but you are here. That's what matters.
My grandfather built a place just like this. Father said it was a dugout, fit for animals.
His voice cracked, and for the first time, he didn't fight the tears.
I mocked what my own blood once built. I am no better than the dirt I stepped on.
Hush now. Your grandfather's home saved him, just as this one saved us. That's not dirt, it's wisdom.
How do I tell Thomas this, after all my talk?
Start with the truth. Start with thank you. He'll understand.
She held his hand, and Robert wept quietly, not for his lost cabin, but for the pride he'd let poison him for years. Dawn found Robert awake long before the others, watching Thomas stir the embers. The words he needed to say stuck in his throat like burrs.
Thomas, I owe you the truth about why I mocked your home. I figured there was more to it. Sit down. My grandfather lived in an earth lodge back east. My father taught me it was shameful, fit for animals. When I saw your burrow, it brought back all that poison. I hated you for it. You were taught wrong, Robert. That's not your fault. It's what you do now that matters.
He extended a hand, and after a long moment, Robert took it.
I want to help you build another one, for my family, to make things right. Maybe I can finally bury my father's shame and unearth my grandfather's pride.
Thomas nodded, and for the first time, the burrow felt less like a shelter and more like a beginning. By the time the first Chinook wind softened the snow, Robert and Thomas had marked out a new pit on higher ground, side by side.
I want the door facing southeast, like my grandfather's. Margaret says that's how you catch the morning light. Good plan. The earth will remember the sun longer that way. Scout, stay clear of the dig.
Word spread faster than the meltwater. By the time they laid the first sod, a dozen neighbors had come to watch and, eventually, to help.
You want to learn? Grab a shovel. The frost line doesn't care about pride, but it rewards hard work.
Robert worked without resting, his coat off, sweat turning the dirt on his neck to mud. This was no longer about shelter. It was about redemption.
I haven't seen him like this in years. He's building more than a house. He's building himself back up.
The children played in the fresh soil, and Scout chased them around the half-built lodge as if it were already home.
When the roof is on, I want to show you something. An old letter my grandfather wrote. It's been in my chest for years.
And so the valley waited, not for the thaw, but for the first new burrow to rise complete, carrying a truth buried too long. The roof went on at dusk. The final square of sod pressed into place by Robert's own hands. A new burrow stood complete.
Thomas, I promised you the truth. This letter belonged to my grandfather.
He drew a folded paper from his coat, brittle, yellowed, with a sketch of an earth lodge in the corner. We built the house into the south slope. 4 feet down, the earth stayed warm all winter. My family lived when others froze.
He knew the frost line too. It's in your blood, Robert. You were meant to build this way.
I was ashamed of the one man in my family worth admiring. Not anymore.
By morning, half the valley knew Robert Caldwell had not only moved into a burrow, but was now its loudest champion.
Folks are asking to learn. I could use a partner who understands what this means. I'll teach them. Every family deserves to know what my grandfather knew.
And across the greening hills, fresh pits were already being dug. Smoke soon to rise from a dozen sunken doors. By the time the wildflowers pushed through the last snow, the valley had asked Thomas to hold a proper school, and every man with a shovel came.
4 feet down, the earth never freezes. Cover it with timber and sod, and you capture that warmth like a blanket. My grandfather's house back east was built this same way. It saved his family just like it saved mine.
Nearby, Margaret watched the children chase Scout through the clover, the air rich with hope and turned earth. By midsummer, 18 earth lodges dotted the hills, each with a curl of smoke and a family who would never fear the cold again. A lanky farmer with sun-cracked hands stepped forward, hat in fist and asked Thomas the question that had once drawn only scorn.
Your south slope will work just fine. Keep the door facing southeast. It'll catch the morning light and hold the heat longer. To think I called this foolish. Now, every shovel that breaks ground proves my grandfather was right all along.
When Thomas walked the path between the new lodges at evening, Scout at his heel, he felt the deep quiet of a quarrel ended. The burrow that had once been a joke had become the heart of a community, and its warmth would outlast any winter. When they raised the first communal lodge, the whole valley came to honor the man who taught them.
You gave me back my pride, Thomas. The valley owes you more than we can say. I just dug a hole. You all made it a home and a school and a hope.
Margaret pinned wildflowers onto his coat, a quiet thanks from every family his burrow saved. The children called it the Warm Hill, and Scout guarded the door like the most important den in the world. That night, Robert sat with Thomas in the original burrow, the letter from his grandfather open on the table between them.
He'd be proud, not of me, but of what we built here. He'd be proud of you for facing your father's ghost. That takes more strength than any roof.
Next morning, the valley felt different, not because of the new lodges, but because the mockery had vanished, replaced by a stubborn, quiet pride. And as smoke curled from every sunken door, it was plain. The burrow had never been a joke. It was the warmest home in the valley. The memory of that winter became legend, and the valley never again dreaded the deepest freeze. Thomas walked the path between lodges every sunset, Scout at his heel, the earth still warm beneath his boots. Robert and Margaret raised their children in a home that honored the grandfather they'd once been taught to forget. The old letter hung on the earthen wall in a split cedar frame, its sketch a quiet rebuke to the past. And in the long summer dusk, the hills glowed gold from a dozen sunken doors, each curl of smoke a promise kept. Thomas never asked for gratitude, but every hand that lifted a rafter was a silent offering of thanks. The burrow had taught them that sometimes the surest shelter is to dig deep and let the earth hold you. That lesson, pressed 4 feet down, would outlast wood and stone, warming generations yet to come. At nightfall, Thomas sat on the ridge, Scout beside him, looking over the lodges that once had been a joke. They called it a burrow once, but those who lived through the winter called it home. And so the story passed from father to son, from neighbor to newcomer. The winter the burrow won. No newspaper recorded it, but nobody forgot it. Scout grew old, the ridge weathered, but the warmth beneath the floor never faded. On the coldest nights, you could still see the amber glow from every sunken door, scattered across the hills like earthbound stars. And in the deepest stillness, you could almost hear the earth itself breathing back the sun. Thomas Reeves never called himself a builder of lodges. He simply dug where the cold forgot to follow. But on the morning he finally stopped walking the path, the whole valley lined that ridge in silence. They buried him 4 feet down, in the earth that never froze, beside the first burrow he ever built. And every winter since, the warmest home in the valley has been the one that started as a joke. They called his sunken earth lodge a burrow, until it was the warmest home in the valley.